Ever wondered what Formula One teams and race officials see that the public never does? Cameras on these million-dollar machines are part of the spectacle. Fans get jaw-dropping views from the nose, the rear wing, even inside the cockpit. But buried in the chaos of every corner, every hairpin, every overtaking move, there's one camera that never makes it onto the live broadcast. It's not on the official replay, it's not posted to social media, it's not even known to most fans. Yet it quietly watches everything, recording in staggering detail, second by second, lap after lap, race after race. This camera doesn't just capture the action, it captures what might save lives. Every Formula One car hides a secret, and it's not hidden behind closed garages or encrypted telemetry files. It's right there, embedded in plain sight, perched inside the halo, the very safety structure designed to protect drivers from flying debris and terrifying impacts. This tiny piece of tech isn't built for fans or flashy TV angles, it's built for survival. It's the camera that speaks when everyone else is guessing, and its footage has never been seen by the public, until now. What makes this hidden camera so extraordinary isn't just the fact that it's out of sight, it's what it's designed to do. While TV broadcasts dazzle with cameras mounted on the nose, rear wing, roll hoop, and even down by the exhaust, this seventh lens, unofficially called the crash cam or high-speed halo cam, works in silence. It captures the world at 400 frames per second, freezing time during the most violent moments of a crash. And yet, the world never gets to see it. This is no cinematic angle or dramatic racing highlight. This is raw data, the kind that gets locked into FIA servers, analyzed for months, and pored over by safety teams trying to answer one impossible question. What happened inside the car when things went wrong? It's not designed for drama, but for diagnostics. No panning shots, no color grading, no cinematic zooms, just precision. It doesn't care whether the incident is headline-grabbing or a barely noticeable bump into the barrier. Every frame it captures is a time-stamped piece of evidence. Stored like treasure in the vaults of motorsport's most secretive databanks, the footage doesn't pass through producers or directors, it goes straight to the people who decode survival. Engineers and medical experts study it like sacred text, frame by frame, to understand not just what happened, but why it happened. What did the driver's helmet do during the microsecond after impact? Did the hand's device flex in a way that helped, or didn't? Was the seatbelt tension just right, or did it need milliseconds more? These are not questions that regular footage could ever answer. That's where the crash cam becomes a window into forces too fast for the human eye to register. And in those violent few frames, the smallest detail could reveal the biggest flaw or the greatest success in safety design. Sometimes the footage confirms everything worked as planned, which is as important as finding faults. Other times it uncovers hidden dangers, things that might have gone unnoticed until it was too late. Either way, every moment recorded becomes another lesson in how to make sure the next driver walks away. Now, most fans are familiar with the T-cam, that overhead camera mounted on the roll hoop showing sweeping forward and backward views. Others recognize the low-angle nose cam, giving a perspective just inches above the track. Some even know the exhaust cam, showing flames and turbulence in spectacular bursts. But the slow-motion crash cam, that's different. This one sits just above the driver's helmet, nestled deep into the structure of the halo, almost invisible to the naked eye. Especially in F1, where teams are allowed to cover it with aerodynamic bodywork. Blink and it disappears entirely. This is where Formula E enters the picture. Unlike Formula One, Formula E teams aren't allowed to hide the halo camera with bodywork. That's where the camera first started raising eyebrows. A tiny finger-sized lens embedded into the halo was spotted by keen-eyed viewers, and a mystery was born. What was this miniature camera doing there? Why wasn't its footage ever shown? And who exactly was behind it? At first, it looked like just another quirky bit of hardware. Some assumed it might be an extra sensor, or maybe part of the telemetry system. But it didn't match anything listed on technical diagrams or visible on standard F1 cars. It was too small to be a broadcast camera and too deliberately positioned to be accidental. That's when speculation kicked into high gear. The more viewers noticed it, the more questions piled up, especially when it became clear that this wasn't a one-off. It was on every car. The placement was oddly specific, tucked just above the driver's helmet within the structure of the halo itself. In Formula E, where open-wheel design meets strict electronic standards, teams are limited in how much bodywork they can use around the halo. That meant this tiny device, usually hidden in F1 by aerodynamic covers, was now exposed for all to see. No team was talking about it, and it didn't appear on any public camera feeds. It was like finding a surveillance device on a spaceship and realizing no one knew who installed it. The intrigue deepened when some engineers hinted that it wasn't even developed for traditional filming purposes. Instead, its true purpose had more to do with safety and data collection, terms that don't exactly stir up viral social media posts but send shivers down the spine of technical directors and FIA officials. This was no vanity accessory. It was a tool and possibly one of the most important ones on the car. Quiet, passive, and impossibly fast, the camera had one job: watch everything just in case the worst happened. That curiosity turned into a full-blown investigation, dragging journalists through pit lanes onto the production sets of the F1 movie and into the guarded offices of the FIA. It was discovered that this was no experimental gizmo. The camera is real, the footage is real, and the reason it's hidden is just as serious as the sport itself. This lens records continuously while the car is on track, silently storing every movement the driver makes in a format few can access. Why? Because when crashes happen, these aren't just videos, they're forensic evidence. What started as a simple observation turned into a deep dive that peeled back the layers of secrecy in motorsport. Journalists began tracing clues from team garages to post-race reports, hunting for anyone who would confirm what this mysterious camera was actually doing. Off the record, whispers started to circulate. This wasn't new tech, and it definitely wasn't just there for show. Production crews from the upcoming F1 movie, who had their own modified cinema rigs mounted to cars, were tipped off to its presence too. Yet even they couldn't access its footage. The deeper the digging went, the clearer it became that access to the footage was tightly controlled. This wasn't about protecting competitive data, it was about protecting something much more sensitive. The camera didn't just film, it archived with surgical precision. From the moment the engine fired up and the car left the garage, it began its quiet vigil, capturing hundreds of frames per second without pause until the moment the vehicle returned or was stopped by an incident. There was something sacred about this footage. It wasn't meant for the press, not for the fans, not even for the teams. It belonged to the FIA and its safety division alone. In the aftermath of a crash, while the world zoomed in on replays and slow-motion TV edits, safety analysts were reviewing data with the kind of clarity only this secret camera could provide. Every jolt, every motion, every shift in the driver's posture could be rewound, paused, and studied with exacting detail, not to point fingers, but to prevent the next disaster. Unlike regular cameras used for broadcast, which capture at around 50 frames per second in modest 1280 by 720 resolution, this one is built with a singular mission: to record ultra-high-speed events in incredible detail. It's not even shooting in full HD. Instead, it operates in VGA quality. Yes, VGA, the same resolution some old-school video games ran on, but that's by design. This camera isn't built to wow viewers. It's built to survive crashes that would rip apart most consumer tech. Its aluminum casing is so rugged it could outlast parts of the car itself. That's not hyperbole either. There are examples of this camera being recovered from absolute wreckage, still recording. This thing isn't here to impress with sharpness or cinematic depth of field. What matters isn't how crisp the image looks on a screen. It's whether that image can still be retrieved after a car slams into a barrier at 150 miles per hour. And more often than not, it can. Even when suspension arms are snapped, carbon fiber is scattered across the track, and the engine bay is twisted beyond recognition. This camera is still quietly sitting in the halo. its data intact. That level of durability isn't a lucky coincidence, it's a design priority. Most action cameras on the market would last about half a second in that environment. They're built for adventure, not annihilation. But this camera? It's purpose-built for the kind of violence only motorsport can deliver. Its internal components are shock-proof, the lens mount is reinforced, and the entire housing is machined from a solid block of aluminum. It's the technological equivalent of a black box from an aircraft, just shrunk down and wired directly into the bones of a race car. And because it's integrated so tightly into the car's safety systems, it can continue recording even if the main power source fails. That means when the lights go out, literally, the footage keeps going. It draws power from its own backup battery, housed in a rugged SDR unit that doubles as a vault for data. This self-contained system ensures that nothing is lost, not even in the most catastrophic scenarios. That kind of autonomy is rare, even in high-end industrial surveillance. So what happens when one of these cameras is triggered by an impact? It doesn't just record a few seconds around the crash. It's always recording, silently looping through a 32-gigabyte memory system managed by something called the SDR, or Surveillance Data Recorder. Think of it like a black box from the aviation industry, except this one is smarter. It's connected to its own backup battery, completely independent of the car's main electrical system. So even if the entire car loses power, this camera keeps rolling. It captures up to 90 minutes of footage at 400 frames per second, more than enough to analyze even the most complex incidents. The internal experience, the driver's physical response, the exact moment restraints kicked in, the subtle shifts of a helmet or a shoulder were invisible. There was always a degree of uncertainty, a margin of guesswork, even among the most advanced simulations. That uncertainty proved especially frustrating in incidents like Alonso's Barcelona crash, where there was no dramatic footage and nothing obvious on the outside to explain the seriousness of the situation. Experts were left scratching their heads, piecing together telemetry and pit crew observations without seeing what had truly unfolded inside the cockpit. Was it a medical issue? A sudden loss of consciousness? A mechanical failure? Without footage showing the driver's reaction in real time, the analysis was speculative at best. When the crash cam became a standardized fixture in Formula One cars, that blind spot began to disappear. For the first time, there was a window into the moment-by-moment dynamics of a crash. How the driver moved, how safety systems deployed, how energy was distributed through the body. It brought context to data. Instead of interpreting numbers in a vacuum, analysts could now sync footage to every spike in G-force or sensor alert and see what the human body was experiencing in those critical milliseconds. The change wasn't just useful, it was transformative. Now, instead of guessing, safety teams can zoom in on the exact moment a driver's body begins to shift in an impact. In the case of Grosjean's Bahrain crash, where his car split in two and burst into flames, the footage wasn't just shocking, it was essential. Each angle from the slow-motion footage added another layer of insight. It wasn't just about seeing the fireball. It was about understanding how Grosjean's helmet moved, whether his Hans device stayed secure, and how the cockpit handled the G-forces. So who builds a camera like this? The answer is Magneti Marelli, a company deeply embedded in F1 electronics. Instead of chasing high-definition glory, they focused on ruggedness, consistency, and usability in extreme conditions. The result is a camera small enough to fit in a child's palm, yet strong enough to capture the kind of impact data that reshapes safety standards. And yes, it looks simple on the outside, but inside, it's a marvel of engineering. That brings up a question worth asking. Why keep all this footage secret? If this camera is so revolutionary, why hasn't the public seen more of what it records? The answer is layered. First, the footage isn't designed for public consumption. It isn't cinematic. It's not meant to be dramatic. It's not filtered or color graded. It's utilitarian. Second, there are serious privacy considerations. This footage shows drivers in moments of extreme vulnerability, moments that are not only painful, but potentially traumatic. Respecting that space is vital. That said, the FIA recently did something unprecedented. For the first time, they shared real footage captured by the crash cam. Opening up that kind of footage to the public isn't just a technical decision, it's an ethical one. These moments often capture drivers at the edge of physical and emotional thresholds, not performing but surviving. It's the kind of material that demands sensitivity, not spectacle. Even in minor incidents, the footage can reveal involuntary reactions, facial expressions, or signs of distress that were never meant for mass viewership. It's not about hiding information, it's about protecting the dignity of the athlete inside the helmet. There's also the risk of misinterpretation. Pulled out of context, even a harmless sequence could be spun into controversy or used to assign blame, when in reality, these frames are meant to study safety, not human error. That's why the FIA has kept such a tight hold on the material. But by sharing even a brief glimpse, like the footage from Sergio Perez's spin, they've offered a rare look into how deeply technical and human this system really is. It's a controlled step toward transparency, grounded in trust and respect. What makes this even more valuable is how much can be learned from small incidents. Big crashes are rare, and everyone is already heavily studied, but the minor ones? They're more frequent and often more telling. Near misses, small collisions, and spins like Perez's offer safety teams thousands of micro lessons, like knowing exactly when a seatbelt reaches its tension limit or how a driver's head pivots under light G-forces. These learnings don't just improve F1 safety, they affect everything from junior racing series to daily road cars. That's another surprising twist. The crash cam, once a top-secret F1 tool, is now being tested in rally racing, Formula E, and even considered for consumer vehicles. How many lives has it already helped save? That's hard to quantify, but its impact is growing every year. The FIA studies around 30 serious motorsport crashes annually, feeding all that data into its World Accident Database. This is like the ultimate encyclopedia of impact science, constantly updated with new case studies. And at the heart of those studies, footage from the secret crash cam. This raises another important question. With all this surveillance, where's the line between safety and privacy? Drivers are aware they're being filmed, of course, but the level of detail this camera captures, right down to how their bodies absorb force, goes beyond traditional telemetry or public broadcasting. So far, the FIA has walked a careful path. Only a small group of officials and safety engineers have access to the raw footage. And when anything is shared publicly, it's done with full consent from teams and drivers. Like in Perez's case, where Red Bull gave the green light for release. The goal isn't exposure, it's education. And that mission isn't slowing down. In the coming years, there's talk of using AI to analyze footage from the crash cam in real time. Not just after the fact, but as incidents occur. Imagine medical crews getting a digital readout of how a driver's body responded to a crash before they even reach the scene. Or engineers being able to model the effectiveness of new safety gear based on live data from dozens of races. The crash cam isn't just helping understand the past, it's shaping the future. And maybe the most compelling part of all this is the reminder that beneath the carbon fiber and million-dollar sponsorships, Formula One is still about people. Real drivers, with families, lives and dreams. Every time they strap into a car, they trust that the system around them, the safety barriers, the marshals, the helmets, the HANS device, the medical team, and yes, even that tiny camera, is doing its job. Not to make them faster, but to make sure they go home at the end of the day. It's easy to get lost in the thrill of racing, the speed, the drama, the noise. It's intoxicating. But behind the curtain, there's a quieter story unfolding. A story told in 400 frames per second. A story recorded by a silent witness tucked into the halo. It doesn't cheer, it doesn't celebrate, it just watches. And when the worst happens, it speaks in detail no human eye could ever capture. This is the hidden camera Formula One never shows on TV. The secret eye that records what really matters. Not the win, not the glory, but the survival. If this look inside F1's secret safety tech changed how you see the sport, consider subscribing for more deep dives into the engineering, ethics, and breakthroughs driving motorsport forward. Drop a comment on what stories you'd love to see next. There's a whole world of hidden innovation waiting to be explored. And don't forget to share this with someone who thinks F1 is just about speed, because sometimes it's the cameras you never see that matter most.